So this is another episode of Totally Leathered, and we have Bianca here today from Walter Reginald Group, the leather merchants in London. Hello, Bianca. Please introduce you.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello, Richard. I'm Bianca. I'm from Walter Reginald. We are a leather merchants based in London. Yeah, we're here to talk about leather.
Yeah, definitely. So you've just been on holiday. Have you been enjoying it?
Oh, yeah, I just got back from Portugal.
Well
It
deserved.
was really nice. Yeah.
Imagine,
It
yeah.
was just nice to get out of the country and nice to
Yeah.
feel like things were sort of returning back to normal, just, you
Yeah.
know, doing the things we all love.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, we're off to Finland not on holiday, but on business in a few days' time, for a couple of weeks' time. So we've got to go and get the guys trained up in Finland as well. So it's America's our biggest problem. We still can't get to America because America won't let anybody from England in at the moment. So it's a bit problematic because we got stands in America for shows and we've never seen them. We've paid for them. We've never seen them. And it's just, causing problems all over. You just wouldn't think of the problems it's caused with the COVID situation. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully, you know, we're getting there. Hopefully we can start to move along.
But that's it. That's all you got to do is be positive and, things will, we'll get back to whatever normal is. It's what is normal. So we'll hopefully go back to the way it was previously. I think probably very differently though, but it's just one of those things, isn't it? So obviously, what is your position in Walter Reginald?
So I run the business with my sister. It's a family business. So it's my mum, my sister and I now. So position, a bit of everything. So buying, selling, obviously running the business. That's what I do.
Yeah, a bit like us then here. It's we all muck in together and help each other with it being a family business as well. So it's good. Obviously, when did the business begin and who actually started it originally? I know it's not, obviously, it's been a family previously, hasn't it, or traditions sort of thing, but who was it that began it originally and when did it all begin?
So the business started in 1948 by a man called Walter Weiss. So Walter was an Austrian immigrant and he was looking to start the business. Back then, as an immigrant, my understanding is that you couldn't actually set up a business without having a British citizen as part of the business. So his accountant, Reginald, I'm not sure of his surname, it became Walter Reginald, that was the name of the business. Yep. And Walter began importing sheepskins and borg linings. So they were doing those sort of football jacket, the old football manager coats and things like that, boots. It was just for linings, basically. Yeah. So that was their business. It was a big business back then. And it wasn't just him. That was like a huge market. And then around sort of 1953, he introduced Suede splits to the UK from Japan. So that was a market. It was a big market, but something that didn't exist in the UK already. So he introduced the splits and obviously, built up the business, was recognised within the industry, etc. And that was him sort of going along. Sort of later, as time passed, latterly, my father, Raymond Farby, he was the managing director at Alma. Which is another merchanting firm, or has evolved now, but back then was a merchanting firm. And he left to set up his own business. So he set up a business in 1984 called Formlit, which he started with his very, very close friend Malcolm Proops. They were in Leather Market Street in Bermondsey. They were sort of getting on merchanting, doing their business, and back then in the 80s and before and after, leather was huge, and in the East End of London, where the rag trade was and all the leather workers were, it was massive. So they grew quite rapidly as Formlet, and he knew Walter. They discussed a merger. So in 1988. Formlet, so my dad merged with Walter. They became Walter Reginald Group. The business was already in Brent Cross in North London, so they all moved in there. They were up there, and then around 1993, I think it was. So Dad bought Walter out. So he did a reverse buyout. Walter was retiring, and so Dad took on the business. Malcolm, Dad, my mum, they were all working together for many years. And that was it. The business sort of just grew from there. We had offices in London, in Canada, where there was a lot of business going on at the time. And that was it. So my dad passed away actually nearly 14 years ago, which was when I got involved. So just after he passed away, I joined the business. And then my sister joined nearly 10 years ago herself. And then now we run the business together.
Yeah,
so
excellent. I'm going to say Malcolm was one of the first guys I dealt with with Walter Reginald in the first place. So yeah,
Okay.
and things. Yeah, Malcolm was one of the first guys we ever dealt with. So which is good.
Yes.
So that people know, what actually does a leather merchant do? What is it? What is your main core business? What is it? How do you perform? It's not a tannery. So that people understand it.
Yeah. So um, working with tanneries, so the way a tannery would work, obviously, is they're producing huge quantities. I mean, their minimum really is a drum load. A drum load could be anything from 1,000, 3,000, 5,000 feet. For the regular everyday customer, they don't need 5,000 feet of one thing. So a leather merchant would be like us, stocking. We stock a huge range of different types of leathers. So we stock everything from fish skins and exotics to lamb skins, lamb nappers and different finishes, cow skins, hair on, sheepskin, everything, a little bit of everything. And what that means is we can then buy the minimum quantities set by the tanneries, but it means that we can then supply the customers that obviously don't need to have those huge quantities. And that being said, obviously we can facilitate that as well, and we do. But it just means that we're sort of a stockist, if you like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's just, I mean, because people do often ask us and we explain it to them and they're like, are you sure? And we're like, yes, we're sure. They're like, basically, they're like a shop, not a tannery. They're like a shop, but a trade shop where people can go and buy things. So it's just so that people understand it. That was all really. So obviously we understand how the company all began and what it started selling, which was quite good. What are the main markets for the company?
So we're really varied. We work with loads of different types of people. So we're working with interior designers, and we're working with fashion designers. We're working with students, costumes for all of the movies. The movie industry is huge in the UK at the moment. So we're working with a lot of the different studios. So to ask what the main markets are, it's very difficult because obviously we were dealing with lots of different industries. Honestly, fashion's been really quite quiet over the last 18 months. Obviously with COVID, fashion did take a huge hit. And so we find because we stock the way that we do, we're in a fortunate position that we can sort of kind of ride along as our business when maybe one market might be down, maybe another market might be doing quite well, and we can supply them. So at the moment, market wise, it's been the movies, and then they're quite varied in what they're looking for. When we're looking at fashion, really for garments and things like that, you're looking at more lamb nappers, lighter weight skins, something like a goat, suede, things like that. Obviously when we're working with interiors, sofas, then it's going to be obviously the bigger cow hides and that sort of thing. So it just depends.
Yeah, definitely. Very, very varied then. So quite an interesting thing with all the various things. Obviously with you having the offices in, because you're near Heathrow, is it? Heathrow, is that where?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. So we just moved. So we were in Wapping for about 30 years as a business. Yep. And then we moved at the end of last year to Hounslow, so West London.
Yep. No, Hounslow well. So what do you have other locations again present around the world like you did originally in Canada and things, or?
No, not anymore. So we just have our main warehouse now in London, so West London now. But we work with, actually we have stockists all over the world. So we work with different, we work with other merchants and things like that abroad. And we've still got stockists in other countries that stock our leathers as well. So
Oh, that's good. Excellent. Cool. Obviously we see Napa used in cars, and there's always this misconception when people sort of look at Napa, trying to understand what it's from, because most people believe Napa to be like from like a lamb or something like that, and we clearly know that it's not a lamb Napa sat in a car, because for one, it's too thin, and it's the moment you sit on it, you're going to break it. So what is the difference between that Napa skin that's in a car and the one that's sort of like on a jacket, so to speak? I presume it's like a cow Napa, I presume, that's going to be in a car, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely right. So Napa actually, it's the finish. So when we talk about Napa, it could be pig Napa, cow Napa, lamb Napa. What the Napa is, it's the top grain of the skin. It's a full grain, and it's normally a better quality in the respect of, when you're looking at the different types of leathers, you have a top quality, which would be the full grain, so you don't need any correction or anything like that. Then, if you need anything to be corrected, there's like an embossing that takes place. So for the Napa, certainly in a car, it'd be a cow. You wouldn't be using a lamb. It wouldn't be strong enough. It would rip. It'd be prone to sort of tearing or scuffing. And the skins just aren't big enough. So you'd have lots of seams and things like that. It's not to say you can't use it, but we probably advise against it because it's just not it's not durable enough.
Yeah.
But for a cow napper, that would be the better quality. If you were going to have a high-end car, you'd be looking at probably a napper finish. Actually, here's what I had earlier. I mean, a napper, I don't know if you can see it, but I mean, it's kind of like a very smooth finish, but you can still see the very kind of faint graying the skin kind of part here. You can still see that, and that's a real feature without having to have too much correction.
Sure.
And then how that would be then pigmented, so it's got the color that's on the top of it, just to make sure that it's protected and it's going to last.
Yeah, so obviously they'll be dyed through like an aniline dye and then pigmented on the top. Whatever goes on there, whether it's a decent promoter and then a primer and a paint and then a lacquer on the top.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good. So obviously with like the corrected grains, what exactly happens there so that the people understand that fully? What is the term corrected grain?
So when we're using leather, obviously we want to get the maximum yield out of something. So on a natural piece of leather, obviously we're going to have a lot of blemishes, we might have some defects and things like that naturally. When you correct it, it means that what happens is you're going through probably the same process often as the nappers. It just means there's a slight emboss, a correction, something that's going to make it completely uniform. So you're going to get a much better cutting yield out of something without thinking, well, I can't use this section here, or there's too much mark here, there's too much stretch. Like us, we have a lot of give and some areas that, aren't as tight as others. And you want to make sure that, when you're buying your skin, there's already only a kind of area that you can use. There's always going to be some wastage. You just want to make sure you've got a really good yield when you're cutting your panels.
Yeah, it's just you want the waste to the minimum, don't you? Because at the end of the day, it's all money that's going somewhere that can only be wasted, really. So it's getting the best out of it. So obviously with the car skins, a standard sort of car skin, they're going to be a fake grain in there again, aren't they? On the majority of them, unless it's like a napper. So that's going to be an embossed grain again. So is that different to a corrected grain?
So it's when you have obviously there is an embossment to it. When it's embossed, you can have different forms of the embossing. So sometimes the grain's a little bit more pronounced. Sometimes it's quite small. Sometimes it's more pronounced. Obviously, all of those different grains have different names and technical names. You might have a floater grain or a madras, and it's to do with the finish that you're looking for. And people want different finishes for different reasons as well. It might be a certain look they're going for, or it just depends what they're looking for. Is one better than the other? Not necessarily. Of course, if it's a slight correction, probably the quality of the skin underneath, it's better quality. Maybe they were better in terms of the quality of better skin to begin with. Obviously, leather is a byproduct. We can only work with what we've got. So, if you've had a really good yield in terms of the skins that have come in, the kind of quality, if you're willing to pay the price, you just want an A selection, maybe you can get away with having just like a little bit of tweaking just to make it a bit better. If it's, not so good, it's maybe like an ABC, maybe it needs to be more uniformed. You just want to know when you're getting your skin, one skin's going to match the next. Sure. And that's the other thing, it's not just getting that one panel, it's making sure panel one matches to panel two.
Yes.
So by getting something that has been tweaked, let's say embossed, something like that, you're just getting that uniformity to make sure that over the batch, it's all going to look the same.
Yeah. So obviously things like your lamb skins, are they going to be an embossed skin or are they going to be completely natural?
I mean, our lamb nappers, so our lamb napper we get from Italy, we get those as a napper. So yes, they're pigmented, they're dyed through and pigmented, but we don't have that. They're not embossed. That's just because they're nappers. Yeah. That being said, we do have some that are embossed. We do have some that are finished. We might have we have laser cutters, all sorts of different finishes. It just depends, and it depends on where those skins originate from. So, sure. For example, the lamb nappers that we get from Italy, actually, they're on Middle Eastern lamb origin, the actual breed, let's say Syrian origin. It means the skins are sort of smaller, tighter, the grain is nice and tight. Yep. It doesn't need that kind of correction. Sure. Then we've got something like, let's say, a New Zealand skin. So a New Zealand skin, I mean, for example, actually, let me just grab this off. So in New Zealand, these are shrunken, right? But they're made on New Zealand skin. So New Zealand skin has this kind of ribbing going through the skins because they're hair sheep. So they're shorn and they grow their hair long and it pulls on the skin. So they have this natural ribbing going through them, which then lends itself to being, going through maybe a heat process, that sort of thing, to become more shrunken and really enhance that bubble on the grain. You wouldn't necessarily want to do that on a lamb napper because it's not going to have the same effect.
Yeah, I'm going to say that one there that you had there, quite a ribbing to it, didn't it?
Yeah, very much.
Is it brown or green?
Oh, actually, it's like an olive green.
Yeah, like an olive. Yeah. So it's got quite a heavy sort of ribbing grain to it, hasn't it? It's amazing.
But as a skin size, obviously the skins aren't big. You're looking at like 6 foot.
Yeah.
But they're not huge skins.
Yeah, exactly.
But they'd be best for, garments, small leather goods perhaps, but mostly garments. So more like a kind of biker jacket, something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, it's amazing that we get people where they're looking at skins like that, and you tell them it's a 6 foot skin, and they're expecting it to be 6 foot long. They don't understand that. So so that people know, how does the sizing work out, so that people just understand? You're not getting a 6 foot long skin. It's obviously cross measurements, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's a 6 foot as an area, so it's a 6 square feet.
Yep.
So if we think like a foot, really, I mean, I normally tell people it's about the size of an A4 piece of paper, roughly.
Yep.
So if you imagine that, how many times you can place that on the skin, that's going to give you the size. Obviously, they're measured much more accurately than that. They go through a laser measuring machine. So when the skins are finished, they kind of pass through and they are accurately measured and stamped on the back. That's how we know what size they are.
Yep.
And that's what gives us the footage. I mean, some skins that we get from Europe are measured in meters, especially when they're coming in on cow hides, for example. But for uniformity, for our benefit, we then convert everything from the meters into the feet. So when we're selling, everything's the same.
Yeah, I know. I prefer using feet and inches as well. So it's much easier.
It's more traditional. We're used to that. So
yeah, that's it. We're used to it rather than millimeters. And I get confused when people start talking about millimeters and things. I will say to them, is it 12 inches or is it so many millimeters? And they're like, well, I don't know what it is in inches. We only deal in mil. So it becomes very confusing. So obviously you mentioned something there about the skins being a byproduct. Obviously that's what we do. We upcycle. So we're obviously upcycling leather with our own business, and obviously you're using a byproduct as well, which obviously is a byproduct of the food chain. Obviously, if that wasn't used in the food chain, the problem's going to be quite colossal, isn't it? Obviously for our environment, because obviously we've got to bury this underground, or it's going to sit and rot in piles, which is going to stink for one thing. We got a tannery near us, and we call it dead donkey land. It doesn't actually, I don't know what a dead donkey smells like, but that's what we call it, because you can smell the skins, and they're literally only about a mile and a bit from us here. And sometimes when you get a bit closer, you can smell the skins with what they're doing. They deal with a lot of wet blues and things, but obviously you could imagine if, I don't know how many thousands, millions of, hundreds of millions of probably of cows a year are being globally around the world are obviously being used for the food chain. I mean, that would cause quite a problem, I would say, probably for the environment and for our health if we were having these skins just piled up or underground. So I mean, they'd have to, I can't see that being a very good thing at all. Can you?
No. I mean, look, we have customers coming in here, and especially nowadays, vegans or people that are a bit sensitive, they don't really understand leather. They don't understand that it's a byproduct. So it's, especially, we work a lot with universities as well. We're in the fashion departments, and we do explain right from the outset, this is a byproduct from the meat industry. Whether you're going to eat that meat or not eat it, that's your personal choice. Yeah. Actually, these skins are now in circulation. So the best thing that we can do is use them. And obviously they can't be used raw. They have to be finished, and they have to be, produced, and we get something really beautiful that's going to last a long time. So personally, obviously this is what we do. I absolutely firmly believe this is the right thing to do, because by doing this, we're using everything of that animal, which has been bred really to sustain us. So we might as well use all of it. It's the right thing to do. And the difference is, when we use leather for a garment or a sofa or a car or whatever it is that we're using it for, not only is it going to last really forever if it's looked after well. I mean, look, we know it's going to last like forever. When you don't want it anymore and it is discarded, we're talking within 100 years that's decomposed, because it is actually organic to begin with. Whereas when we have customers coming in and they're sort of undecided, or we see it everywhere, the alternative, the plastic alternative, the leather look, what it does to the environment, we'll be long gone, and that will still be around, not decomposing, not going anywhere. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, we had a podcast with Mike Redwood, who we talked to quite regularly, and Mike was saying to me, I think it was like, if you look at sort of cows, if they're sustained, proper sustainable farming properly with the cow, once obviously, or the methane, if they do the farming properly, they can trap that under the ground. as long as it's sustainable farming. Obviously, if it isn't sustainable farming, they're releasing that methane. But even still, you know, the methane from a cow, I think from what Mike said, was like 100 years in the air. But the plastic, it's like 1,000 years or more.
Oh, a plus. And who knows?
Exactly.
Who knows if it's, they say it could be 1,000. Who's been around to know? You don't know that.
Absolutely.
So,
and then you look at it, you know, what is better for our environment? Is it better to produce a plastic product, which is going to cause problems for our pollution with factories? You know, seaway, you know, the seas in marine life and stuff like that with small plastic particles, or do we use a natural product, which is why we love our industry? You know, it is a natural collagen fiber product, and it's just it just oozes that quality and that naturalness about it, doesn't it? It's just nature. It's just, I don't know, it's very difficult to describe unless you're sort of involved in it. It's just you're touching nature. It's, you know, there's just something so special about leather. You know, it's just absolutely love it. It's just such a natural thing to deal with, and it's, I think, you know, if we were to, I mean, my worry is if we all stopped eating meat and did what everybody wanted to do, which is stop eating meat, you know, the animals have got to eat something. You can't stop a lion from, you can't go up to a lion and just say you can't eat that crocodile or hyena or whatever. You know, they're all going to eat meat, aren't they? Even animals eat meat. So, you know, how do you stop an animal that you don't want, like a cow? How do you know, they're going to, if vegetation is going to disappear, they're going to want to eat something. If they've eaten all the vegetation, the next thing they're going to eat is people. You know, we're going to go back to dinosaurs.
I don't think it's going to come to that, but anyway, yeah. I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult. It's difficult to try to educate people to make them understand that this is a better choice to the alternative. Yeah. Because it's not. Of course, you have a choice. Don't use leather. Use fabric. I mean, that's a choice. But don't use something that's meant to look or replicate leather.
Yes.
Because that alternative, it doesn't make sense. It goes against the reasons of choosing it in the first place.
Exactly.
And it's not because it's cheaper. I mean, to have a good leather replica is really expensive. And many customers have been in here before that have used synthetic alternatives and are shocked at actually how cheap the leather is comparatively. Yeah, and it's better and it lasts longer. You know, the synthetics, it's not even that they don't decompose, they don't last very long on the product. They start to break down. They are really sensitive to the environments that they're in. So if it's too hot or too cold, they start to crack and peel and break. Whereas obviously with real leather, it's just, that's not going to happen because it's like us, we're not cracking and peeling. So
exactly. That's what we're trying to sort of talk to people about when we're obviously, because we obviously run the courses and we're trying to get people to understand the differences between the fake and the real. And we always sort of say to them, first, one of the first things you've got to do is touch it. It's going to feel different. The leather will naturally attract heat. The plastic, what isn't leather, is going to naturally feel much colder. And you don't get leather cracking in straight lines like you do with plastic, you know, and that's one of the first signs. You get it a lot, you know, with particular car brands. I won't mention the car brands, but with particular car brands where people come to us and they're like, oh, I drive an XYZ, and it's like, but it's plastic. No, it can't be. This cost me £65,000. You know, I'm sorry, but it is plastic. And they're like, well, what the hell are you going to do about it? Well, we can't do anything. I would suggest you go back and speak to the dealership you bought it from. You know, and we've had it with some dealerships where we've spoken to them with work, and they've actually turned around to us and said, we'd much prefer to have leather in our cars, but we're just a franchise here and we can't do anything about it. But these interiors break down sometimes within months of being brand new because it's bloody useless. You know, and that, to me, you know, if you've got a leather skin that's going to last 100 years or 200 years, 300 years, whatever it is, you've got a fabricated plastic skin that's going to last maybe a few years, you've then got to work out the amount of times you've got to remanufacture that during that process of say, 200 years. How many more gases are we putting into our ozone and causing problems for future generations because we've got to keep remanufacturing those skins to keep that one car interior going? Whereas if it was leather, it could last 200 years or more. You know, if cared for properly, you know, it could last even longer than that, you know, if it's cared for properly, you know, and that is, I think is, like you said, you know, you touched on it, it's the education side of it. It's trying to get people to educate them to understand, you know, we're not running around with bows and arrows, getting cows and sheep off the field. You know, we're actually dealing with a product that's already there, like you quite rightly say. We are, I mean, as in our price, we're preserving it, which isn't good for your business, but we know we're preserving it. You know, and you're obviously selling a product that's already there. So it's a natural product that's great for the environment, you know, and it is good, you know, and it's a good product. So obviously, you know, there's several things we could sort of go down the route of so that people understand what is a split.
So a split. So when the skin comes off an animal, it's actually quite thick. So what happens is the top, it's split down. So the top split, which the top skin, the skin that we see, the Napa or whatever, that would be the kind of first layer, and that's finished, and that would be like skin on one side, and then the flesh, the suede on the other. Then you have various splits. So the splits, basically, it is like a suede on both sides, but it could be that it's refinished. So maybe you could have like a slight foil or a coating or a spray, maybe on the top side of a split, a coated split, because it's giving that skin. It's not just you take that skin and that's it. It's there. It's done. It's utilizing everything that you can from that skin. So obviously, depending on what you're using, is what you're going to need in terms of the split. So it could be that if it's like the cars, for example, a high-end car, they're going to want that top grain Napa, or that the grains that we were talking about. But you might have the trim maybe inside the car that you just need the suede. You want that suede effect, so you're using, it's actually a split. So the suede that you're seeing normally would be a split. It's not exclusive, because some things are finished for suede specifically. For example, pig skins actually make really nice suede. So the reverse of the suede is the skin, and then afterwards you'll have a pig split, which is suede on both sides. So that's kind of, in the essence, that's what the split is. When it's going through the machine, because it's going through a splitter, when it goes through the machine and it's splitting, obviously it's creating dust, if you like, it's kind of leather dust. All of that, even that isn't wasted, because then what happens with that is it's gathered up and it's reconstituted, and that's what would be considered a bycast.
Yes.
And then that's kind of, again, that's used as well, but that would have more of a PU coating on it, because it needs to be bonded so that it can get that kind of substance that you could use it.
Yeah, and then obviously you've got bonded leather as well, haven't you? So it's
and bonded leather, exactly.
Yeah. So and then obviously with your, I think I'm right. I might be wrong. The bycast, is that the one where you've got like a layer of leather almost on the back of it, isn't it? With the
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
it's like really thin, and then and I think actually, because we don't sell bycast, actually we're very much leather. But from what I've seen bycast before, I think it's really thin leather, but less leather than PU coating.
Sure. Yeah. So obviously with your PU coating, what does that actually mean, so that people understand what you mean by PU coating?
So that would be like when you have the synthetic leather, which is like plastic, PU. It would be a coating that then it's being bonded to basically just to reinforce it. So it's not. I
was going to say, we get it quite a lot in this industry, where people, again, where it's a bit like the leather industry. You get all these sort of people giving different names to skins, which confuses the public. Sometimes we give it a name just to tanners maybe give it a name just to make it sound better, when it's probably the same as like a vachetta is the same as whatever. It's like with your Louis Vuitton bags. They call it a vachetta skin, and it's probably the same as something else. So obviously we get it in this industry, where people come and say, I want the PU coating put back on my leather car seat. So again, we're not putting a plastic coating back on there. We're actually putting a pigmentation back on there. So again, that we get that sort of mixed message in our industry as well, where everybody thinks you're putting a polyurethane coating back onto the car seat, which it clearly isn't. It's a pigment coating with a lacquer on there, which is how it's done. So I mean, you do get all those sort of mixed messages in our industry, as well as what you're probably getting in your industry, where people are sort of talking about various skins and calling them different things. It's all very varied. So obviously with your splits, the further down you go on the skin, obviously the worse the quality is going to become, isn't it? Because you're getting closer to the sort of flesh.
I wouldn't say worse quality, even. They're for different things. Look, you're not gonna necessarily, like pig splits, for example. It's quite a big market, but it's for linings. So it doesn't mean exclusively for linings. Of course, we've got customers that might want to use that for the outside, but generally that would be for lining. The reason being, it's got certain characteristics that make it something that maybe would be to make something leather lined, like a bag, for example. You want a full 100% leather piece. You could line it in a pig split. It's going to last a lot longer than a kind of synthetic alternative. But at the same time, yeah, like I said, you wouldn't necessarily want that on the outside. It's not worse quality, but it is cheaper because obviously you're going down the scale.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we've seen many a handbag, with obviously your leather linings in, which I presume will be a pig split again in them. So, because obviously your suedes are coming from down there rather than at the top, whereas your nubucks are from up the top, aren't they, with a slight corrected sort of nap to the finish.
Yeah, exactly. It's buffed. So with the nubuck, they actually have to be really good quality skin, so like top quality. Because then what happens is they sort of blast off the grain. And to reveal this kind of buffed finish. So it's not the suede, it's this buff. But then by doing that, by getting rid of the top grain, you're then revealing any scars or imperfections underneath. So you have to have the top quality skins, which is why generally nubucks do tend to be a little bit more expensive, because you're having to then deselect kind of the better skins then for that article.
So obviously you got your nubucks, which is buffed, and then your suedes. What's the difference between the two? The suede, I presume, is like a sanded sort of finish.
The suede is the flesh side, so the inside of the skin, and that would be the suede on kind of both sides generally, or at least that kind of the reverse of the skin. Whereas yes, the nubuck is the top grain with the grain just buffed away.
Sure.
So and they have a slightly different feel as well. So suede would be a little bit more fluffy, isn't the word, but it would be more textured, whereas the nubuck, it's just a bit more sort of buttery soft without having that sort of shine, that skin feel.
I've always thought that the suede was more, probably not the correct term, it's the only way I can sort of describe it. The suede is more sort of stiffer, whereas the nubuck is more softer, almost like a sort of aniline type sort of texture, sort of that it's got that silky sort of.
It depends. Yeah, that depends. I mean, actually, with a calf split, it would be a little bit kind of stiffer generally. But then we sell a lot of goat suedes, really like nice little goat suedes for really high-end garments, and they are just so lovely and soft and everything, that because they're such a tight grained skin anyway to begin with, so that it gives like a really nice tight suede, not too fluffy or fibrous.
I think we've got a green one here that we've got in for our training room, and I've got that from you, and it is beautiful. It's a green goat suede, and it really is. It is like it's amazing. It's like touching silk. It's beautiful.
Yes. It's really
a very
nice.
lovely sort of finish. So obviously you deal with a lot in England. Do you do like a lot of shows and things? Do you go to?
Yeah, well, when we can. So we normally exhibit in Paris in September. We exhibit in New York in July, Hong Kong in April. Obviously, we've not been able to do anything like that the last couple of years. We're just waiting for everything to just start to open up a bit. Our industry, the leather industry, it's a tactile industry. Our product, it's tactile. We have to touch it. You can't. There's only so much you can do online, and we're very lucky nowadays that we do have this technology available to us. It's incredible. It's opened everything up, but it has a limit, and we have to be with the product, and we have to see and feel it. So we are looking forward to maybe next year restarting all of our shows.
Getting back
and seeing our lovely tanners.
Well, and customers and everything else. It's just getting back out there and sort of getting back to the show normality again, isn't it? It is very difficult. I mean, we've obviously missed, no end of shows that we can't get to around the world, and distributors and things that we can't get to, and it's just, it's frustrating because they want to learn, because we've got to teach them, and they want to learn, and we just can't get there. And then, like, we've obviously just had it with the Olympics. They've opened up the Olympics, and now, of course, Finland, where we're going to, is loads of people are getting COVID again in Finland because they've all come back from the Olympics, causing problems. So it's a bit of a worry, because we've obviously got to go there, and the last thing I want is to go there and get stuck. We can't get home. So it's just all these. It's just people don't. It's just all these little things that cause no end of problems. For the industry. You mentioned earlier at the beginning that you do a lot with with the fashion and obviously interior designers and things. What sort of things are the interior designers? Obviously, I know it's sofas and things, but do they use still quite a fair bit of it we do a lot with repairs in London on floors and walls and staircases and things, but is it still used quite a fair bit for that?
Yeah, I mean, people use it for all sorts of different things. It could be, just soft furnishings and cushions and things like that, and little effects and lamps and lampshades and little inserts in tables and little drawers and things like that. Obviously big sofas, and actually sheepskin's become quite successful for us for chairs and things like that as well. So it's something that, you know, it's a little bit, it wouldn't be the first thing that we'd have originally thought about, but actually that's become something that's been quite popular. It's a kind of real look now that people are kind of going for. They want these sort of little sheepskin chairs, and that's been really successful as well. So yeah, it really varies. I mean, I couldn't even say, okay, there's one thing that's our top seller, and that's how it's always been. Obviously we have ranges that we've had for decades because they are steady and they're regular, and there's a market for them. You know, it could be, we've got our Nova Pelly range, for example, which is South American cowhide with a kind of slight distressed finish, slightly buffed grain, so it's not quite a new buck, but a little bit of a buff grain. That's extremely popular. It's always been so, and an absolute staple over here at Walter Reginald. You know, likewise our lamb nappers and things like that. You know, we have our staple lines that we've had for years and years and years, but we work very, very closely with our customers, and we innovate and we develop specifically for them. So they'll come to us and they might have a really strange request, or they might have something that's really, really unique, or it might be a certain finish or color they need to match, and we can do all of that. We're really fortunate. You know, the tanneries that we work with, we've worked with for donkey's years, and literally more than my time here, 30 plus years, some of them. My dad was friends with them. We knew their kids. They knew us when we were kids. And so we've got such a lovely relationship that they will do small quantities for us. They will do a little bit of development. They will make one bundle for that special color, because they do it because we have that good relationship, and we're able to then pass that on to our customers, so that, you know, if they can't find out of the 500,000 foot leather that's downstairs what they're looking for, we'll make what they need.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's obviously that's quite good for someone that's like an interior designer that wants something that's quite unique, that where you can get that almost like a one-off, really, isn't it? It's quite good sort of side of it. So yeah, it's actually a good, you know, good sort of position to be in, to have, you know, sort of, as you say, grown with those families over the years and sort of built that friendship where they will do that, rather than, you know, your normal sort of big barrel full of skins, or, you know, however many thousands of feet it will be, you know, for that. So it gives someone that's an interior designer that advantage to be quite unique with giving somebody that one-off thing. Obviously boats and things. Do you sort of do a lot with that sort of side of it, supplying into those markets, or not?
Not so much. I mean, we have done in the past, of course, and tanneries that we work with, they do develop leathers that are specifically for boats. Within the tannage, they have to have certain processes applied that are going to leave them able to cope with the kind of environment when they're out, obviously being wet all the time, the salt, etc. Of course, we can get hold of the leather. We've probably got some skins here that are used and that have that might be general upholstery leather, but they'll have a certain amount of testing involved that we know that they'll be suitable for yachts, for example, and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, unfortunately, we don't all have yachts, so we can't
no, they're very expensive.
Put leathers in them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously things like aircraft, Virgin, British Airways, or whatever. Obviously, it's you know, the leather in there that, you know, if they have leather in them, they have to go through quite a strict control process, I would imagine, with fire retardancies and things to be used. You know, is that something that you sort of get involved with, those sort of side of things, is getting skins tested?
If need be. I mean, look, if we had something here and it wasn't tested, we'd get it tested. Nothing that we're going to have here on the shelf is going to be going into a British Airways plane. It doesn't work like that. They're going to be buying on a huge scale directly. They're going to have very strict specifications, as you said, that are going to, you know, that they're going to need to require. And actually, the finish of those, you wouldn't want that in your house, or probably even in your car, certainly not on your handbags or on your clothes, because it's so, you know, to touch it's very dry. It doesn't, it's very different. It's specifically for that. It has to go through so many processes. Yes, like you said, with not just the fire retardancy, so much else, the amount of wear and the use that it would have. It's a completely different line. Of course, if you're having a small private jet, then you know, of course, it has to have, you know, the requirements are, it has to have certain specifications that it has to meet, of course, but then I think you'd probably be open to probably have what you want. But yeah, and likewise, like with the yacht, the tanneries we work with might not stock those kind of skins here, but they all supply and manufacture those types of leathers as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's all very different to how it used to be with Connolly, isn't it? I mean, your traditional sort of Connollys, you know, obviously go back sort of, back to, the original days of, 1948 when it all began, would they have sort of got involved with sort of supplying that sort of thing back then or not? Or is it just, what they stuck with then, which was obviously introducing the splits originally, from Hong Kong or somewhere, did you say originally, was it?
Yeah, no, from Japan.
Yeah, Japan, yeah.
You know what? That's a good question. Would they have gotten involved with that? I don't know. Walter would have done. I couldn't possibly say. I mean, this talking like a very long time ago. Yeah. Would Dad have gotten involved? Yeah. My dad and Malcolm, they were always really into kind of introducing new things. My dad would travel around the world when we were younger. That's what he did. He worked really, really hard to make sure that Walter Reginald had something different, that we would offer something different. And for my sister and I, Natalie, we pride ourselves on that. We not only just have a little bit of something for everyone, we pride ourselves in actually developing, innovating, offering something different and unique. Right. And not kind of like scrabbling around looking for that gap in the market, really trying to think, okay, actually we could do something here. This could be something, discussing with our customers if that's something they think could work for them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, where do you sort of see the business going now, with you and your sister?
Just kind of carrying on as we are, we love what we do. We love that we can do it together. Yeah. And we just want to keep going, build that, carry on the legacy, carry on and just, keep the business going, keep growing the business. Yep. And carry on doing what we're doing. We just love it. We love our customers. It's so varied. You never know who's going to come in. Yeah. Everyone that comes in is doing something different. They bring so much energy with them, and we really just love that. So yeah, we just want to carry on.
So is there one sort of particular sector that you prefer, like say fashion or home or anything like that? Is there one that you prefer? Or
no, you know what, I just love leather. I love our leather. Yeah. I want everyone to love our leather too, and mostly they do. So I think because we love our products, yes. Because we value our customers so greatly, it means that we can really work with them. And there certainly wouldn't be one industry that I prefer over another, because like I said, it's to do with that work, it's to do with those customers, and it's what they do. And we're so invested in what they do, because in turn that obviously it grows our business. So
yeah. And you've got to have that, it's the same with any business. If you don't like it, there's no point being in it, is there? It's as simple as that. You go and find something that you do love to do.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And we're very fortunate that we love this so much. So. Yeah.
And do you see you sort of growing it further from here, or?
Growing it, like, you mean how?
Getting the business bigger, or opening more locations again, or?
If it allowed for that, look, we've had an extremely challenging year, not just as a business, as an industry. I think the leather industry, we face a lot of challenges going forward. We have lots of different factors that are causing those challenges. We have got the politics of it, the veganism and all the rest of it. Yeah. We do have the environmental challenges, which obviously as tanneries, as resellers as well, and as customers, we all have to try to look about how we can improve producing the leather, because it might be a natural product, but ultimately there are chemicals involved that have to produce it. We have to stabilize those skins as soon as they come off the animal. They have to be processed, and all of that has an environmental impact. So we all have to work together to change that. And so with these constant challenges, of course, we want to grow the business and get bigger, but we're in a very, very small industry, and actually an industry that I think is almost reducing rather than expanding. So, at the moment, I think we just need to carry on, hold tight, keep going, work hard, really try to promote the benefits of the leathers, just try and encourage people to make the right choices when they're looking to use their different materials.
Yeah, I think it's like you said earlier, I think it's having that sort of innovation side of it and being quite unique with what you do, which is what we believe we do. We're sort of going through it at the moment, and people sort of look at us and laugh really and think, why are you trying to be eco-friendly? Well, to be fair, we've all got to try, no matter how big or how small we are. As daft as it may seem, we use like plastic bags internally for things, and we're changing those now to different forms of packaging so that they're a biodegradable product that can be put into a compost heap. It's little things like that that help, even down to like little tiny mixing pots, that are almost like shot glasses. We've made sure now that instead of them just being ordinary plastic, they're actually recycled plastic. All our bottles are recycled PET bottles. and we've gone from using plastic glue sticks to now having FSC sourced timber, glue sticks, and doing it that way. So we're trying to get rid of as much plastic as we can, and having, sustainable products in, which are better for the environment, that are also going to naturally degrade, and I think that's the key at the moment. I think to any business, no matter what you're in, I think is being unique, trying to be very unique, very customer focused, and trying to be innovative with what you do. And I think, with you guys, that's what you've got to continue to do, isn't it? Is have that very core focus on your customers, being innovative, and trying to sort of help protect the environment with what you do at the same time.
Definitely. Look, like you said, we've all got a responsibility to do that, personally and in the business. So that's all we can do. So we just have to just keep going, do our best.
That's it, definitely. So tell us, it's been great. How do people, obviously, wanted to get hold of you, they wanted to buy skins from you or inquire about what sort of skins that you do? How do they get hold of you? What's your social media things and website, email, that sort of thing?
So our website is walterreginald.com or walterreginald.co.uk. Both of them will lead you to us. They can email us, info@walterreginald.com. We are on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, at Walter Reginald Ltd. Get in touch. We are kind of on all the different platforms. We're really quick to respond. So they can just, anything they need. We send out free samples, so either they can go online and they can order their samples, if they can get in touch, we can send cuttings, so that kind of thing. So obviously it is difficult, and throughout the last 18 months, it was something we always did. We always sent out samples because you need to see before you buy. But certainly in the last 18 months, when people haven't been able to kind of go out as much, that's a really important aspect of what we're doing, and we're doing it all the time. So sending cuttings out. So ask us, talk to us. Obviously, we all know everything as much as each other. So there's no one person that's better than the other to speak to. They can get hold of us that way.
Yeah, to say it's good. Yeah, because I can't. I obviously can't vouch highly enough for you. The service we've always had as a company has been absolutely exemplary. Like you say, with the samples, we've asked for samples, and when we dealt with Malcolm originally, we got them through a piece of paper all stapled together, written out prices. You couldn't have asked for anything better. The service has always been exemplary, and we've still had that today. When we recently bought some other bits and bobs from you for the training centre side of it, we've had the service from you has always been phenomenal. And that's what it's good, and that's why we wanted to get you on today, because it's people need to learn about the leather, what you do, and who you are, and how they get hold of you. It's as simple as that, and it has always been a very good service, and hopefully everybody will come and talk to you about skins. It's because you've never let us down either, ever. So it's been fantastic.
Good, thank you.
Good problem. So there we go. Thank you very much, Bianca. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Likewise, thank you.
Thank you. So that was Bianca from Walter Reginald Group Limited, leather merchants in London. Thank you very much.